Is it? Please tell me this is working, somebody. Just gonna open chat. If I can. I'm not very used to this, guys. Bear with me a moment, please. Hi, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to the first AstCa News F1 race commentary special because, yeah, we're doing the race commentary today, but of course that doesn't start for another half an hour yet. Thank goodness. Thank you, Roxanne. Really appreciate that. And yes, Roxanne is here because it turns out she's also now a moderator. God, I think she runs this channel more than I do. And frankly, probably for the best. Hey Daniel, good to see you. But yeah, AstCa News up first. And well. Not an incredible amount has happened this week as far as I'm aware. By the way, I'm doing this live, so if anyone has something that I can talk about on AstCa News, please submit it in chat so I can do so. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, not an incredible amount has happened so far this week in terms of the Astoundcast. There has been one major thing that I think is pretty big, and that is the fact that the Minecraft 1.20 update has finally got its name. And its name is Trails and Tales. And frankly, that's probably the best name they could have chosen, considering how eclectic the update is in terms of the content being introduced. Like, it's a weird one, I can't lie. So yeah, that is the name of the new update, 1.20. I believe dropping at some point this year. I'm not fully sure when, frankly, but I'm sure we'll find out in due course. Now, I've got to be honest, there hasn't been too much else this week. It's been quite a slow news week, really, so I'm just going to quickly talk about all the stuff that's happened in the world of F1 between, pardon me, my last video and today. And well, let me just say that Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin team have gone insane. They have put it P5 for Fernando Alonso and P8 for Lance Stroll, despite his massive injuries, and a new one has been revealed, by the way. Turns out he's also broken his toe. Youch. He is now 13 days out of surgery and roughly 2 weeks after the accident, so he hasn't had too much time to recover, so we're going to have to see how good old Lance does during the race. Hopefully he does well, because he does deserve it, to be honest. He's had a few rough years in Formula 1, so I do think this weekend and this race with this car could be a damn good opportunity to prove how good of a driver Lance Stroll actually is. Now, if you'll excuse me one moment, just got to quickly grab something. 2 seconds, guys. Bear with me a moment. And we're good for the race. I would just grab my iPad stand so I could actually watch the race while giving you guys the commentary. So yeah, now we're all sorted for the race. So, what's everyone's predictions for the race, if you have any? If you're watching the race, please let me know. If you're not watching the race, glad you're here so you can kind of listen in on what's happening via me. Yeah, so AstCa News hasn't had too much this week going on because, as I said, it's been a pretty slow week. Not too much has been happening, and, yeah, it's been a bit of a slow week, unfortunately. In other news, I have gotten ever so slightly closer to finishing Microsoft Excel, and I've nearly finished Halo 2. Just thought I'd mention that as well, because I am currently I am about to play the last mission tonight, after tonight's Astoundcast, which is going ahead, by the way, 6 PM UK time, so in roughly 3.5 hours. Yeah, I'm cutting it close with this stream and that one. It's gonna be fun, guys, I can't lie. So yeah, I've had a pretty fun week, and all in all, Microsoft Excel is almost behind me. So is Halo 2. I'm very much looking forward to Halo 3 ODST, because yes, despite it being a game released after Halo 3, it actually takes place during Halo 2. It's a confusing one, guys, I can't lie. It's going to take me a while to get around it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the game, and can't wait to finish the whole series, of course. As I mentioned in a few weeks, once I've finished Halo Infinite, I will be talking on the AstCast about the full game series. In fact, I might actually do a separate video on it altogether because it's just that good in my opinion and is worth doing a full-blown video on. So, yeah. What does everyone else think of the Halo games? Do you think it's worth carrying on one per week? Apologies about the motorbike engine. I don't know where that came from. Yeah, very annoying, but that's what you get when you live near a main road. So, yeah, not too much has happened this week, guys, I'm afraid. So, I suppose now it's just going to be a little bit of a wait for the race. Of course, as I mentioned, Lance Stroll is back in the car, so thank heavens for that. Again, I don't know how his performance is going to be affected due to his injuries, because we know he is still suffering a little bit with his hands, which is a shame. Like, in practice on Friday, he was moving his hands to the bottom of the steering wheel to avoid moving it as much as he should be for a turn, which was quite concerning, I can't lie. I was having doubts about him being able to race, but it does seem that he has been able to move on a bit from his injuries and is definitely now able to go ahead today. So thank goodness for that. I'm really glad to see that Stroll is okay, and hopefully he can pull out a good result, because frankly that Aston Martin is an absolute rocket ship of a car. I genuinely can't wait to see how well it performs today. It's going to be an interesting one, guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Fernando Alonso ends up on the podium, or even in the winner's spot. Like, neither of those things would surprise me that much, so be prepared for a bit of a wild race, guys. It's going to be interesting. And in regards to Lance Stroll, of course, he's going to finish where he's going to finish. Mercedes seems to have made up a bit of ground in comparison to Red Bull and Ferrari this week, which is good to see on their side. Of course, Ferrari have taken a bit of a drop, which is quite interesting, and Red Bull are Red Bull. They're doing incredibly well. I think they're on a bit of a par with Aston Martin, if not slightly ahead, so I do think that could be an interesting battle. Like, I'm really looking forward to Fernando Alonso versus Max Verstappen. That could be really interesting. So, yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that particular aspect, because I do think Verstappen and Alonso are very similar drivers, and I do think that could potentially mean those two come to blows. But we'll have to wait and see, because we're now about 20 minutes out from the race start, which is quite exciting, because, you know, first race of the season is always tense. Even the F2 race earlier on was quite tense at the start, and then went on for quite some time. I don't know how it lasted as long as it did, but it did. Eventually, Théo Pourchaire did go on to completely and utterly destroy the rest of the field with a 19-second lead, which is just insane beyond belief. I am honestly in shock as to how well he did there. And to be honest, he deserves it. He's been a good driver in F2 for a couple of years now, but really deserves the step up to Formula 1, I think. And I do think 24, if he keeps up that sort of shenanigans from earlier, could be a possibility. So don't be surprised we see Théo Pourchaire on the F1 grid next year. Now, moving on to the F1 rookies. Oh dear. Oscar Piastri had a bit of a disaster in qualifying only P18, which isn't the best, but hey, isn't the worst either. That actually went to Pierre Gasly, which I was really surprised about, by the way. I wasn't expecting Gasly to be as low down as he was in dead last, due to a deleted lap time in qualifying. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem for Gasly, and he's going to have to be really careful this weekend, as he is still on 10 penalty points, which, by the way, if you get 12 of them, you have a race ban. And he is on 10. And no, the penalty points don't reset every season. It's on a 12-month basis, so the points start disappearing 12 months after you got that point. So Gasly is going to have to be really careful for quite some time, or he will get a race ban. But hopefully, he can keep his nose clean and not get those final 2 points. Now, but honestly, this race could be quite interesting, because, as I said, Aston Martin has turned into a bit of a rocket ship. I just don't know what's going to happen here, guys. This is very, very unknown. Like, Aston Martin have never been this good, really. Even in the days of Jordan, Force India, Racing Point, because yes, This team is descended from Jordan. I know. Feels weird, right? Like, that team was around even before I was born. So to see them still on the grid with a new name again and doing as well as they are is quite astonishing to me. So I really do hope that Aston Martin do something good this year, because frankly that car is too good to fail in my opinion. Now, of course, Sebastian Vettel is probably going insane at home thinking, why on earth did I have to retire right now when his old car is now an absolute beast? Yeah, I feel kind of bad for Seb at the moment, I can't lie. But Seb's loss is Fernando's gain, and very potentially Lance Stroll. Like, I do think those two drivers are ones to watch out for this year, provided the Aston Martin's pace does maintain. But of course, we do have to consider Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez as well, the current drivers champion, and Red Bull, the constructors champion at the moment. Like, we do have to consider those very heavily, as well as Ferrari. Maybe not as much considering their woes at the moment, but they could bounce back quite easily. And of course, Mercedes. Like, the W14 isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a vast improvement on the W13 of last year, and it has improved quite a bit over this weekend. And of course, we do have to talk about the other cars on the grid as well. The Alpine is a bit of a... well, we can't really track where that one's going to be in terms of the standing order of the grid this year. The McLaren is in a bit of a slump once again, like the beginning of last year, but hopefully they can turn it around again like they did last year. And, of course, the Haas is another weird one to track. Like, they were doing semi-well in testing and have now dropped back down to the back of the grid again, which is quite disappointing. The AlphaTauri is another weird one to track, as well as the Alfa Romeo. They're doing semi-okay at the moment. I believe they scored 12th and 13th in the in qualifying for this race, so they could be a team to look out for this week. I'm trying to think who else I've missed. Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo. Yeah, there's a lot of A's on the grid, guys. Williams as well. I hope they improve. I really hope they do, because when I was born, Williams were a top team. And since I'd say the mid-2010s, they've really dropped off. So Williams, I think, do need a bit of success, and soon. And hopefully with our new team principal, James Vowles, who of course is ex-Mercedes and BAR and Braun GP, that could go quite well. I think that they have got a very good team principal behind them. They've just got to get some good results behind them too, and hopefully Alex Albon and Logan Sargent can get them those results, because, let's be honest, Alex Albon is a damn good driver. He is really, really, really good. Of course, he did that mega stint in, I think, Imola last year on one set of tyres and only changed on the last lap because he legally had to. Yeah. He ran a race on one set of tyres and only got rid of them because the rules of F1 stated that he had to change. Wow! That was one of the most mega things I have ever seen in my life. Now, of course, Logan Sargent is a bit more of an unknown quantity. Of course, he is an F1 rookie this year. Just about made it into Formula 1 by the skin of his teeth. He only just managed to get the appropriate amount of super license points in the last race of the F2 Championship last year. So, Logan just made it into F1 this year. How he will perform now he's got that chance is kind of unknown. I do want to also talk about AlphaTauri with Yuki Tsunoda and Nick De Vries. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda is on his third season in F1 with AlphaTauri, which is kind of the point where you need to really prove yourself at that team or you're in trouble. Whereas Nick De Vries is a rookie to F1, but is in no way a rookie to motorsports. He has been a two-time Formula E champion for Mercedes, which no longer a part of the sport, it's now McLaren. He is also, I believe, an F2 champion, and I think he won F3 as well. So The man has hella experience, and hopefully he can put that experience to good use as well. So I do think that AlphaTauri might be a strong pairing if the car is good. Now, but of course that kind of goes without saying. Now, as for Alpine, I did mention a moment ago that Pierre Gasly is in quite a precarious position at the moment with his near race ban amount of penalty points and his back of the grid start for today's race, with his teammates in 10th. That could be quite a problem for the Enstone team. So I think Alpine could be a problem if Gasly is able to get back up to where Ocon is, if not further. Like, Gasly could cause some problems for the front runners of this race, so keep an eye out for them. Of course, I mentioned a minute ago that Alfa Romeo were 12th and 13th in qualifying, which is pretty decent, to be honest. I'm quite impressed with them, so hopefully they can get up there into the points. Of course, I mentioned the top teams a few minutes ago: Aston, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Williams. I think I've covered all the teams now, except for probably one, Haas. They have ditched the rookie strategy they had for the last couple of years with Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. And then, of course, Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen, of course, who wasn't a rookie, but I think Gunther Steiner was trying a rookie and experienced approach, which, you know, not the worst idea, but ultimately didn't work out for the American team. So they have instead gone for the approach of two incredibly experienced drivers in Kevin Magnussen again and Nico Hülkenberg, who is, of course, Hulken back. For the, I think, 4th time now. I've kind of lost track of how many times he's returned to the sport and gone away again. Hopefully he sticks around this time, because, you know, he's Nico Hülkenberg and everyone loves him. So, yeah, it's bit of a weird grid this year, I can't lie, but I am looking forward to it. But of course, I actually do want to mention Mercedes, because I don't think I've mentioned them individually. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, we know they were a good pairing last year, with a not brilliant car, but I think this year, with a much better car, they could do a lot better than 2022. Now, we are only 13 minutes out from the race start, which is amazing. Like, I can't wait to get this thing going, because it's the first race of the season, as I said earlier. It's always complete chaos. You honestly, with this race, expect the unexpected. And Aston Martin have well and truly proven that. So I think I'm actually going to get started a couple of minutes early on the pre-race commentary. One moment. Then, I've lost a thing, give me a second. There it is. So, if you're wondering how I'm doing this, I'm going to be broadcasting this stream on YouTube, obviously, but I'm going to be watching the Sky Sports commentary of the race, so I'm going to be kind of commentating over the commentary, but you guys won't be able to see or hear that, only I will. And here we go. So, I suspect about now that, yeah, they're on the grid, getting ready to go. I think Martin Brundle might have just finished his grid walk, which is always a fun segment, in my opinion. But yeah, opinions, guys. Who do we think is going to win the race this weekend? Is it going to be a Red Bull 1-2? Is an Aston Martin going to be thrown in there? Is it going to be a Mercedes, a Ferrari, or someone completely different? Who do we think it's going to be? Like, that's what I want to know. Is it going to be the usual suspects, the newcomer, or somebody completely unexpected? No indication they were going to win, but they win anyway. Of course, we know this race is 57 laps of the Bahrain International Circuit, which I have calculated the estimated runtime of the race. They are averaging 1 minute 30 per lap, and it's 57 laps. So, by my estimates, this race should take 85.5 minutes, provided nothing goes wrong. Yeah, this is Formula 1. That doesn't happen. Yeah, nah. It's Formula 1. Nothing ever runs smoothly, so this race may go a little bit longer, but not too much. So there will be plenty of time for me to prep for the Astowncast this evening. But yeah, gonna be a fairly long race, but frankly, I think it's one of the shorter races of the season, so it's going to be a lot of fun. At the moment, we are getting some talk about the cars. I believe the national anthems are actually about to start, so that's going to be, well, I say the national anthems, the national anthem of Bahrain, of course. And I really just can't wait for this race to get going. As I said, it's going to be great. Of course, this is McLaren's 60th anniversary, so hopefully they can pick up the pace a bit and get closer towards the front of the grid, because we know they've been having a little bit of trouble lately with their car, much like they did at the start of last year. So hopefully McLaren... Oh, goodness. Sorry, everyone. A little bit of a accident. Oh, don't worry, Roxanne. I've got one. But yeah, sorry about that, everyone. Just a little bit of an accident there. But we're okay now. And now I'm just waiting for the race to start, which is only a few minutes away now, which is just really good. I can't wait for it to start. So, personally, my opinions for this race, I think Fernando Alonso is definitely in the mix for the win, along with probably Max Verstappen. Perhaps Sergio Perez will get in there. Hell, maybe even Lewis Hamilton will get involved in the mix. Like, I really don't know who's going to be on this podium. It's going to be... I will say, none of the drivers who end up on there will be a surprise, I think. Like, I do think it is going to be some of the regulars, plus maybe an Aston Martin. But it's going to be a weird race to try and predict, guys, because we know it's completely insane with the Aston Martins thrown in. That's really kind of thrown everything off in terms of any predictions that could have happened, or that could have been the case. So yeah, I'm just not sure who's going to win this thing. Who the hell knows? Because I sure don't. Anyway, I'm just going to grab my drink. Yes, unlike Kimi Raikkonen, the drink is mine. Had to throw that classic F1 joke in there. But I'm just really sad that I won't be able to say, here comes Sebastian Vettel. Unless he surprisingly shows up at a race out of nowhere. Probably, well, definitely not as a driver, but he could show up as a spectator. And no doubt Crofty will take advantage of that fully. I would really love to see Seb at a race this year. I am sad that he won't be able to drive, because of course he has obviously retired from the sport, but everyone has to retire eventually. So, yeah. Just have to see how this race goes, how the season goes. In fact, I'm going to ask you guys now, who do you think is going to be the drivers and constructors champions this year? Will Red Bull make it second constructors in a row, and will Max Verstappen make it 3 drivers in a row? Or will it be a Mercedes return with Lewis Hamilton getting his 8th? Or Ferrari with Charles Leclerc in his first? Or will it be Fernando Alonso with his 3rd after 17 years, by the way? Yeah, it's been that long since he's won his last championship. And he now has the chance to do it again if he doesn't mess up this season. If he keeps his nose clean this year, and that Aston stays as good as it is now, Fernando Alonso could be on for a 3rd world championship. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't sound right. Like, I genuinely can't believe I have just said those words and meant them. Like, I don't know what's going on this season. As you guys know, I was quite confused in pre-season testing last weekend, with the Aston Martins performing as well as they did, and I'm now even more confused that has continued into this first race weekend of the year. So I'm just really excited for this race. I hope Aston Martin does do well, because, as I've said, in their previous incarnations, they've never had the best of luck. This is probably the best that team has ever been. And of course, I do want to mention a team with quite a legacy here, as this will be their final season in F1. Sauber. Yes, I know they're currently known as Alfa Romeo, but the full title is Alfa Romeo Sauber. So this will be their final season in F1. Well, this will be Alfa Romeo's final season in F1. Sauber's final season will be 2025, because of course, when Audi comes in, it will not be Audi Sauber, it will just be Audi. Yep, the Sauber name will be leaving F1 for the first time since 1994, actually. They started in the 1994 season, of course, 2 races before the tragic loss of Ayrton Senna in Imola. But yeah, they have been in the sport for quite a long time, and it's going to be weird to see an F1 without Sauber. So hopefully these final couple of seasons for the team does go well before Audi completely takes them over in 2026. Now, I believe the race is only a mere moments away, so I'm probably going to just get ready for the race now. Oh, well, the formation lap should be in a few minutes' time, maybe 2 or 3. Of course, Ferrari have had to make a very quick change to Charles Leclerc's engine. Not a full-blown engine change, but they have had to change, I believe, the energy store, which is quite a vital component of the engine, and they're only allowed 2 of them per season. And they're already on their second now. So, yeah, that's going to be fun for Ferrari. Also, the F1 intro's just started. I still absolutely love it. It's definitely my favourite of the new era, with the Brian Tyler theme over it. And I'm really loving this version of the opening sequence. Very similar to last year's, of course, but I do think a huge improvement on it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments or in the chat if you're watching live. Because yes, I will be keeping this live stream on YouTube after it's finished, so you can come back and watch it any time. Even so, if you've missed the race and want to know what happened, you can come back, watch it, and then, or if you want to just relive the race, if it ends up being that good, which I think it will be, you can do that as well. But yeah, hopefully, guys, you enjoy this because, of course, this is my first foray into commentary. Now, we have the rundown of the track. Oh, yes, the Red Bulls are at the front. Yep, Bahrain Grand Prix, the first one of the season. The first of 4 in the Middle East. And we have a 5.4 kilometre circuit, or 3.36 miles. 1 minute 31 average lap time. 3 DRS zones, 15 turns. 9 and 10 are a nightmare, in my opinion, on the F1 games. So that's fun. So it is quite an interesting track to drive around. A lot of big straights, but when the corners start coming in, they do come in very thick and very fast. So it is going to be quite challenging for the drivers to keep it on the track at all times. I do think there's going to be quite a few track limits violations today because, well, there was quite a few in the F2 race earlier on. Unfortunately, quite a few for brother of Ferrari driver Arthur Leclerc. Yes, he is in F2 and is very much hot on the heels of his brother. I think he is going to be in F1 himself in a couple of years, so keep an eye out for Arthur Leclerc, because his name is Arthur, not Arthur. I thought I should say that now, just to really clear that up. We are on the C3, C2, and C1 tyres today, which are on the harder end of the compounds of the F1, of the Pirelli tyres. Of course, there is now a C0 compound, which is quite interesting in my opinion. Now we have the starting grid. Pierre Gasly in 20th, Nick De Vries in 19th, Oscar Piastri in 18th, and Kev Magnussen in 17th. We have, next up, Logan Sargent in 16th and Alex Albon in 15th. So the Williamses are together. 14th is Yuki Tsunoda, followed by Zhou Guanyu in 13th. Next up, we have Valtteri Bottas in 12th and Lando Norris in 11th. Next up, into the points-paying positions, are Nico Hulkenberg in 10th and Esteban Ocon in P9. Next, we have Lance Stroll in 8th and Lewis Hamilton in 7th. And after him, I believe, is George Russell in 6th and Fernando Alonso, the absolute legend, in 5th. Next, we have Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc in an all-Ferrari second row. And lastly, Sergio Perez in 2nd and reigning world champion Max Verstappen on pole. So that's quite an interesting grid in my opinion. Some expected, some very unexpected positions there. Namely for Gasly, Piastri as well. I'm quite surprised those two were as low down as they were in qualifying. So hopefully those two do manage to make their way back up the grid to where their cars probably should be, really. Now, I believe the formation lap is about to start. And for those of you who don't know what the formation lap is, it is just one lap around the track very slowly to like warm up the tyres and make sure the drivers are all perfectly in their grid slots, which is going to start, as I said, in a moment's time for all drivers. So they are currently in their grid slots, yes, but they also need to warm up their tyres because at the moment their tyres are under the blankets, but will get... Oh no, they're not under their blankets, so they will get pretty cold sitting on the grids. They are going to do a quick lap around the track. Well, I say a quick lap, it won't be quick at all. They'll be doing a slow lap around the track, and then it's going to be away we go. And here comes the formation lap any moment now. Here is Sergio Perez in second place. For anyone who's actually watching the commentary as well, like, I'm going to be making some references to stuff that is on screen, so if you're watching this as well as listening to me, first of all, thank you for doing both. Like, that's really cool. We have the Rolex clock at the end of the pit lane, and it's officially struck. I'm not sure what time it is over there, but it's officially 3 o'clock here, and here comes the formation lap. So here comes Max Verstappen, weaving down the straight, which in race conditions would be illegal, but due to it being a formation lap, that is allowed due to warming up the tyres, unless you're Kimi Raikkonen and you just keep going in a straight line. Yeah, that man was quite good at a formation lap. Can't lie, I do miss Kimi as well. Wow, fun fact here. 7,125 solar panels power the Bahrain International Circuit. Whoa, that's a lot of solar panels, guys. That is quite impressive in my opinion. So, yeah, formation lap for the first race of the season. Everyone is on soft tyres, except for Kevin Magnussen, who's on the hards, which is quite interesting. Like, why has he specifically gone for the hard tyres and not his teammate Nico Hülkenberg as well? That could be quite interesting for Kevin Magnussen. We have the tyre strategies here. Soft 17 laps, hard 22 laps, and soft for the 18 laps. Or we have the second strategy, one set of softs for 15 laps, one set of hard for 20 laps, and one set of hards for 22 laps. So that's two alternate strategies that this race could go to. And considering that most drivers are starting on softs, it could happen either way. Now, for Kevin Magnussen, of course, he's not starting on the softs at all, so his strategy is going to be quite strange compared to everyone else on the grid. So he is going to be quite an interesting one to look out for. I don't quite know how he's going to do in this race, considering his odd starting tyre choice. So just have to keep an eye out for that. But yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting race with that, guys. Like, I'm not sure how that puts Kevin Magnussen in contention for the race. Like, that could be quite interesting. Oh, got a replay from Lance Stroll here. Oh, and he locked up into turn 10. Yeah, that double left-hander, turn 9 and turn 10, is quite the nightmare. So the drivers are going to have to be careful of that because that is a track limits area. So they're going to have to be really careful to stay on the right side of the white lines on that part of the track. And here come the drivers back into their grid slots, ready for lights out. And yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting race. Christian Horner, at the moment, looking very tense, as well as Fred Vasseur, the new Ferrari team principal, of course, taking over from Mattia Binotto. And now we have Toto Wolff and Mercedes reserve driver Mick Schumacher, who I'm just very happy to see is still in F1 to some extent, of course being dropped by Haas at the end of last year. So the grid is currently forming up for the final few cars. That should only take a moment. I will admit the back end of the grid is always really slow to form up, so pardon me. This could take a moment or two, but not too long. Fernando Alonso's ready to go. Surprise, surprise, he is in 5th place, the highest he's probably started in a race for a very long time now. And here we have it. The Aston Martin safety cars at the back. We have 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, and 5 lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2023. And Max Verstappen gets off to a blistering start, I must say. Oh, but here comes a Ferrari. Oh, goodness. Oh, this is going to be very tight coming out of turn one. Turn one at this track is always tense. And ooh, we have a lot going on here. We have, wow, so much stuff going on. Jesus. Got a Ferrari. We got, oh, it's a, oh my goodness. I need timing sheets here because we very nearly had a yellow flag there. Oh, and there was a collision between the Aston Martins. Oh, that is not good. Oh, goodness. Oh no! Oh god, Fernando Alonso slipping back. Okay, this is a very stressful start to a race. This always happens at Bahrain, guys. Turn one in Bahrain is never clean. Never has been, probably never will be. God, wow, that was a hell of a start from the Ferraris and Red Bulls. And in fairness, the Aston Martins, as I had predicted. I wasn't surprised at all by that, to be honest, but yeah, the Aston Martins have slipped back a bit, it seems. Oh dear. It seems that Oscar Piastri has made up a few places, which is very much good for him. The Mercedes are doing quite well, it seems. And Nick De Vries has made up a couple of places as well, it seems. So, yeah, quite an interesting first lap, it seems here. We have Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Russell, Alonso, Bottas, Stroll. Oh, and that's the yellow flag in Sector 2. Bottas, Stroll, Norris, Ocon, Albon, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Sonoda, Piastri, Zhou, Magnussen, Pierre Gasly, and Nick De Vries. And that is your finishing, and that is your order at the end of lap 1. Now, what is this yellow flag in Sector 2, I wonder? Like, I know there's probably no cars down that area by now, but I'm curious to see what that yellow flag is, because, of course, yellow flag isn't generally good. It may be a bit of debris from a car. Oh, and here's the incident between the Aston Martins. Oh, it would appear that Lance Stroll understeered into Fernando Alonso. Ouch. That's not good. That not really something you want to happen between two teammates, and two new teammates, by the way. Remember, this is Fernando Alonso's first race at Aston Martin, so not the best of starts for those two. Hopefully, they do get their act together a bit throughout this race, and hopefully Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll's damage isn't too severe for them, because we know these cars are now a lot more fragile than they used to be, so they have to be a lot more careful, especially around the floor, because that's where a majority of the car's downforce comes from in this age of Formula One. So they'll have to be really careful with the floors now. I don't know if we have DRS yet. I know Formula 2 have started introducing DRS at the end of lap 1. So I'm not quite sure what F1's rules are on that, but by the looks of it, it's at the end of lap 2, which is, well, what do you know? That's right. Now we are now on to lap 3. So it's a bit of a crisscross pattern between the Ferraris and Red Bulls, with Red Bull 1 and 3 and Ferrari 2 and 4, and Mercedes behind them in 5 and 6. So hopefully Fernando Alonso is able to gain back some time, and hopefully hasn't got too much damage from his collision with his teammate. And here's a little replay of the race start, so that's going to be quite interesting to see again. Oh, that was a very close call between, I think that is Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez at the very start. A little bit of contact made, so that may become a problem for those two. I don't know if there was any damage caused between those two, but that will be quite interesting for them throughout the race, because once two drivers generally hit each other, they've kind of got it in for each other for the rest of the race. So Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez are going to be quite interesting to see. And here is actually Sergio Perez's view of that incident right now. Yep, there was a tiny bit of contact between the two. Nothing too severe, so it was just a little tap between Sergio Perez's front left tyre and Charles Leclerc's right side pod. So nothing too severe, really. And here's another view of Lance Stroll's accident, hitting into his teammate. Oh dear. Yeah, and Fernando Alonso's now reporting over team radio he's been hit, so He probably hasn't quite realised it's Stroll yet, but yeah, it's going to be quite fun for them. Here we have a Haas. I think it's Nico Hulkenberg. I haven't quite figured out the helmet designs of those two yet, so bear with me on that. Yeah, I think that was Nico Hulkenberg's Haas. I think there was a bit of debris that flew in his way. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. It was quite unclear. Anyway. Ooh, Max Verstappen has made quite a lot of ground on the Ferrari, with a 3-second gap to Charles Leclerc. So he could be not really out of contention. Well, I think Max Verstappen has quite a good chance now with such a lead on the 4th lap of the race. That is quite a lead from the Red Bull there. And we are now on board with Carlos Sainz, closing in on Sergio Perez, but still quite a distance between them, but I think give him a couple of laps, he may catch up. The two Mercedes drivers seem to have dropped back a little bit from the pack, so they have got a little bit of catch up to do. Fernando Alonso is keeping up, though. He is only a second behind George Russell in 6th, so I don't think we can count Fernando Alonso out quite yet, but I think this is going to be quite an interesting race, guys, so stick around. Ugh. Also, I would love to say, just drinking water here. You know, gotta love that hydrocephalus life. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, and that is Lance Stroll making a move on Valtteri Bottas and actually overtaking him. So that means we now have the Astons, both Mercedes, the Ferraris, and the Red Bulls in the top 8 together. Oh, but that is Valtteri Bottas trying to come back at Lance Stroll, but not quite succeeding. So I think Stroll is actually recovering from his injuries quite well, it seems. Of course, there is very little gap between Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, so Stroll and Alonso are going to have to be careful now, because if Valtteri Bottas does get a bit of a second wind, he might overtake them both. We have, there will be no further investigation but in the Stroll-Alonso incident, so that will not be investigated any further, just a racing incident, it seems. And here we have a bit of a replay from Sergio Perez's car. I'm not quite sure what happened. Oh, teeny bit of a lockup from Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari, so that was nearly not very good for him. We've got quite... Sergio Perez is starting to catch up to Charles Leclerc quite a bit now, so I wouldn't be surprised if in the next lap or two it becomes a Red Bull 1-2 again. In fact, it could even be at the end of this 6th lap. Or hell, maybe even sooner. Like, Sergio Perez is very much up Charles Leclerc's rear end. So this is going to be quite an interesting battle here, because we know Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc last year were basically the deciders of the championship. So yeah, that could be quite interesting between these two. Of course, Sergio Perez did finish in front of Charles Leclerc in that race, giving Max Verstappen his 2nd championship. Of course, at that point, Max Verstappen had done all he could do, and that would have left Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc to fight it out to see if Charles Leclerc would be champion or Max Verstappen. We have Logan Sargent up into 13th and Lando Norris in 12th, so this is going to be quite an interesting battle here. A current rookie versus a rookie from a few years ago. Only a 0.7 second gap. Yeah, the tenths of a second in Formula 1 matter more than the full seconds. Like, in fact, they matter a lot more. Of course, the individual seconds do matter, but the tenths of a second are immensely important. I'm just actually seeing the all the positions gained and lost between the drivers in this race so far. And the only driver, and the only drivers that haven't lost positions are it's gone. But Yuki Tsunoda hasn't lost any positions or gained any. Neither has George Russell, along with a couple of others, which I couldn't quite catch. That's annoying. We have Zach Brown, CEO of McLaren, looking very stressed at the McLaren pit wall. Frankly, I can't blame him. And we have, Kevin Magnussen in dead last on his hard tyres in the Haas. So I don't think the hard tyres have paid off for K-Mag. He might probably come in soon to get those changed, because his teammate Nico Hulkenberg is doing much better in 15th. Okay, that isn't much better, but it is a lot better than Magnussen. Now, right, who do we... Okay, it doesn't seem to be much else happening at the moment in terms of on-track action. Max Verstappen is almost 5 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc now, which is quite a gap, I've got to say. Max is doing quite well in this race. Of course, we do have to look back to this race last year that unfortunately didn't end well for most of the Red Bull-powered cars. In fact, by the end of the race, it was only, of course, Yuki Tsunoda still running. Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri caught fire, and of course, the Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez just cut out towards the end of the race. In fact, Sergio Perez on the final lap, and Yuki Tsunoda thinks he has a visor tear-off in his left side pod. Now, the visor tear-offs are like basically sunglasses for your visors that you can just rip off during a race. And sometimes they do get caught in the car, like in the side pods, or in Lewis Hamilton's case yesterday, in the rear left brake duct. So you do have to keep an eye out for that, but the visor tear-offs are basically just sunglasses for your visor, which you can, of course, as I said, rip off during the race at any time. And you do have a few to get rid of during the race if you need to. Now we are on lap 8, and there doesn't seem to be much happening at the moment. It seems to have settled down a little bit for a while. That does tend to happen in this race. Like, after the first couple of laps, things do tend to pipe down a bit, and George Russell is currently on the fastest lap of the race, which is absolutely phenomenal for that Mercedes. Of course, it might not stay that way for long, but it equally might. It could go to a Red Bull, Ferrari, or it could stay with George Russell. But he did just run wide coming out of turn 10, so that may hamper his chances of keeping that fastest lap. Of course, the only fastest lap of the race that does matter ultimately is the final one, because and George Russell is reporting over the radio that he feels he is faster than Lewis Hamilton, and it's been confirmed that Lewis is struggling with pace, so it wouldn't be too much of a surprise if Mercedes swaps the cars around. Best for multi-21 situation. If you know, you know. But, yep, that is George Russell running very wide coming into turn 10. Oof. So, I do think that, I don't want to confirm Mercedes, I don't want to speculate that Mercedes might do that, but if Lewis is really struggling with pace and George really, really isn't, they may consider swapping the cars, but that we'll just have to wait and see for. Now, the fastest lap is being held by Max Verstappen. Not much of a surprise. Okay, Ferrari have confirmed to Charles Leclerc they're going for Plan A, which is, the original plan for the pit stop, so they aren't changing anything, they're not adding any laps on. By the way, when they say Plan A plus 5, that means they're sticking with Plan A, but they're going to extend by 5 more laps. So it's still Plan A, but they're going to drag it on 5 laps further than they would have. Or if they say minus 5 or something, that means Plan A, but sooner. Just a little thing I thought I should mention there, because that is going to come up during the season at some point. So I just thought I'd explain now what they mean when they say Plan A plus a number. So if they say Plan A plus 3, so it's Plan A plus 3 laps. Just thought I'd mention that now. Kevin Magnussen is still struggling on those hards down in last, so I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in for a pit stop soon to change onto the softs, because, as I mentioned for the start of the race, both prime strategies started with the soft tyres. We have Max Verstappen reporting that downshifts are giving him some rear lockups on the tyres. So Red Bull are going to have to look into that and hopefully for him try to fix that. I don't know how. Of course, it's all computerized, so they'll be able to fix it from the pits. And speaking of the pits, here comes Pierre Gasly for his first pit stop of the race and the first pit stop of 2023. And what time is it going to be? He is on a 3.7 seconds. Not bad. That's actually a fairly decent pit stop. Pit stops average around the 2-second mark, so a little bit slow, but honestly, not too bad for the first pit stop of the season from anyone, I'd like to point out. Oh, another radio from Max Verstappen. Okay, they're instructing him to change some settings on his steering wheel, which they think will fix the rear lockup problem that he's having on the downshift. So, have to wait and see if that works for the world champion. And the pit window for the current tyres, which are the softs for most cars, is going to be opening on lap 12, which is the next lap, and will close on lap 20. So, when they say the pit window, that is like the optimal time to pit stop. So, like, you don't have to stop in that time, but it's the best time to stop for the first stop of the race. Of course, Pierre Gasly, as I mentioned a minute ago, has gone a bit earlier on that, so we'll have to see how that affects him throughout the race. Like, that is going to be quite an interesting one to see how pitting 2 laps before the window has opened is going to affect the French driver in his new team Alpine. Oh, and we have Fernando Alonso coming up the back end of George Russell. Oh, and we have quite a few changes happening with Lando Norris dropping down into the pits as well as Yuki Tsunoda. So Kevin Magnussen is now up to 17th. Oh, and Lando Norris apparently has an engine issue. Oh dear, this could potentially be the first retirement of the race. Oh, we're going to have to monitor this one. Oh, 32.7 second pit stop. That's, yeah. That seems to be the end of Lando Norris's race, which is quite a shame. Like, oh, okay, so that would seem to be the end of his race. I'll be surprised if it isn't, but it probably will be. I'm expecting him to change to a retired sign in a moment rather than the unless he has managed to get back out, in which case, good on him. Zhou Guanyu has managed to overtake Nico Hulkenberg. And we have Fernando Alonso again chasing down George Russell. Oh, and here's a... Okay, George Russell is reporting that his tyres are starting to give way on him. So he's probably going to pit very soon. Oh, and here are the Mercedes pit crew ready to receive George. Oh, and they're heading back in. Okay, so I'm guessing they're going to pit George at the end of the next lap, if not this one. Of course, the pit window has now opened. We're on lap 12. So any time now between lap 12 and 20 would be the best time to stop. And we have now, that is once again Lewis Hamilton and George Russell being chased down by Fernando Alonso. This man's going to be a problem throughout the season. I can feel it. Well, I say a problem. He's going to be quite a thorn in the top team's side. But it's interesting to see that Aston Martin have just come out of absolutely nowhere. Now, Fernando's getting really close to George Russell, but George is parking his car in all the right places. Like, Fernando just can't get past him. Oh, and that is Esteban Ocon investigating an incident with Esteban Ocon not being quite in the right grid position. He was in the right grid slot, but he may have been not quite in the right place, because that is a very big thing for the FIA, making sure all the drivers are in the right area of the grid slot. If they're a little bit further ahead than they should be, they are going to probably do something about that. Now, we have a message from Lewis Hamilton, and he is taking his first pit stop of the race, which means that we have George Russell in 5th now, and Fernando Alonso back into 6th. Oh, and we may have an overtake attempt in a moment from Fernando Alonso. Oh, he's up. He is alongside George Russell. He is back behind him. Oh, goodness, this is quite interesting. Lewis Hamilton had a 2.3 second pit stop, which is a very good one. And Esteban Ocon had a 2.7. Oh, and Fernando Alonso has, okay, not quite got ahead of George Russell, but he has now. So that is Fernando Alonso in 5th place. And Logan Sargent got a 3.6 second pit stop, and Joe Guan Yu got a 3.8. So that means that Fernando Alonso is now ahead of both Mercedes. Wow, that was immense. Holy hell. And of course, next up for Fernando Alonso is his fellow countryman, Carlos Sainz. And here's a little replay of that little ding-dong battle between Fernando Alonso and George Russell from Fernando Alonso's helmet cam, which is now mandated for all drivers to have this year. Last year, I believe it was just Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc, but now every driver must have a helmet cam so we can actually see what the drivers are seeing from their helmet. And here comes the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc into the pits. And that was a blisteringly fast stop. My goodness. And they're double stacking with Carlos Sainz. So this will put Fernando Alonso into the podium positions for the moment. What? Here comes George Russell as well. My goodness. Yeah, when the pit window opens, the pit stops start coming in thick and fast. So, we have Oscar Piastri coming in, it seems. Oh. Okay, we may have a double McLaren problem. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, Lando Norris is still going, it seems. Fair play. Yeah, Fernando Alonso in the podium positions. What the hell? Okay, that is phenomenal for Fernando. Of course, he has quite a gap to Sergio Perez now, but... and that is the front wing end plate of one of the Alpines hanging off of the car. That's going to need fixing. And that's very unique. Oscar Piastri has a new steering wheel. And Verstappen's coming into the pits, and Oscar Piastri's car's died. But that doesn't happen very often, a steering wheel change. The only other incident I can think of is in, I think, China 2007 with Lewis Hamilton, also for McLaren. So I think that may be Oscar Piastri out of this race, which is a very big shame for the rookie. Yeah, it would appear that Oscar Piastri's engine just cut out in the pits, which is quite a shame, but unfortunately, that's Formula One. That is what happens. And here comes Fernando Alonso for his pit stop, which leaves Lance Stroll in the podium positions now. And Perez is now in front of Max Verstappen, I'm assuming due to the pit stops. And Lance Stroll is now only 7 seconds behind Max Verstappen. They're still working on Piastri's car at McLaren. Maybe they'll try to get it restarted and back out onto the track, although I'm unsure if that'll actually work. We have, it seems, a little battle coming up between George Russell and Fernando Alonso. That could be quite interesting. A bit of a repeat from earlier in reverse. But Kevin Magnussen is right on their back ends, so it looks as if Kevin Magnussen's strange choice to go to the hards might have worked out for him a little bit. So we'll have to monitor this one. And here comes George Russell to overtake Kevin Magnussen. So maybe Kevin Magnussen's hard tyres at the start plan hasn't gone perfectly, but seemingly has gone better than was expected. And Oscar Piastri is now being retired. Yep, his first race of the season is over. 41 laps prematurely, which is a damn shame. I'm really sad to see that. Oh, and Esteban Ocon has a 5-second time penalty for his grid start infringements. So that will be either 5 seconds in the pits for his next pit stop, or it'll be 5 seconds added on to his race time. And there's Lance Stroll coming into the pits, landing somewhere in the top 10 just. George Russell has once again got the fastest lap of the race so far, which is, wow, I am again in shock. And he is right on the backside of Fernando Alonso. So I think George Russell might be about to get revenge on Fernando. He may be about to take 7th place off him, which could be quite interesting. Definitely gonna have to monitor this little battle for a bit. Like, that could be quite an interesting one to see. Oh, and there comes out an Alpine from the pits. That was Esteban Ocon, so he seemingly served his 5-second time penalty in the pits. And what happens there is the driver goes into the pits and the mechanics can't work on it for 5 seconds. Or if it's a 10-second time penalty, 10 seconds. But if they don't serve it in the pits, it will get added on to his race time, and he'll be dropped back as far as he needs to be dropped back, if at all. If he is able to maintain a gap of 5 seconds to the car behind him, he will maintain his place. But if he's less than 5 seconds from the car behind him, he'll be dropped behind that car. But right now, he has served his penalty in the pits and is now back out. Okay, there's a bit of a train forming here with George Russell, Fernando Alonso, and Valtteri Bottas, and Lewis Hamilton a little bit further up the grid, a little bit further up the track, I should say. But George Russell, Fernando, and Valtteri, that could be quite an interesting scrap between these 3 drivers. Of all 3, very experienced, some more than others, namely Fernando and Valtteri have a bit more experience than George. In fact, and that is Fernando Alonso making a move on Valtteri Bottas and succeeding. Yep, that is Fernando Alonso up into 6th. And right behind Lewis Hamilton. Well, I say right behind, I mean 4.7 seconds off of him. So, that's going to take a while. I would like to point out now that the situation's kind of flipped with the tyres, and Sergio Perez is the only man left on the track with softs. And that immediately gets outdated because Sergio Perez is now coming into the pits for another set of soft tyres. Huh. Okay. That's, interesting. I'm assuming we're going for Strat 2 in that case, which was soft tyre, hard tyre. So that's an interesting strategy from Perez, and that does put Max Verstappen back into the lead of this race. And that's Charles Leclerc into 2nd, so that drops Sergio Perez down into 3rd, which is exactly how it was towards the start of this race, not long after turn 1. Hamilton is still in 5th, 2.5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. Of course, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Oscar Piastri is now out of the race, so there's only 19 cars on track, which is a massive shame for Oscar. I was really hoping for him to do well in this race, but sadly, it clearly wasn't to be. And that is Lando Norris coming into the pits. And George Russell has got Valtteri Bottas. I wish we could see Lando Norris's pit stop, just in case something is going wrong for him, but hopefully there isn't. I really hope there isn't for poor Lando. Lando Norris has been in the pits for quite a while now. Starting to get a bit worried here. Haven't heard anything from McLaren. Okay, there goes Esteban Ocon. Nope, Lando Norris is back out on the track. And is also on soft tyres like Sergio Perez. Okay. I wonder if Oscar Piastri would have gone to the same strategy had he carried on in the race. Well, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see, really. Well, we won't, because Oscar Piastri's out. But we'll just have to see how this strategy goes for Sergio Perez and Lando Norris. And Logan Sargent and Alex Albon, it seems. I've just seen that they're both on soft tyres, so the Williams, the remaining McLaren, and Sergio Perez are all on soft tyres, while the other remaining cars are all on hards, which, okay, interesting. Okay, George Russell has got the fastest lap once again, and it would seem that Fernando Alonso is catching up to Lewis Hamilton. I know we have a replay of Lando Norris's pit stop. Maybe we'll see why he was in there for so long now. Oh, it would have... okay. It looks as if there was a problem with one of the tyres. Yep, okay. Right, so it was an issue with one of the... I think it was the left rear tyre. Okay. Hopefully that won't happen to him again in this race, but we'll just have to wait and see. Okay. Yep, they're just talking about Andrea Stella, the new McLaren team principal, who has had many years of experience in Formula One, joining McLaren in 2015, but prior to that was at Ferrari towards the end of the Michael Schumacher days and up to 2015. And once Andrea Seidel left for Sauber at the end of last year, Andrea obviously took his place as team principal. Team radio from Max. Okay. He's still having trouble with the downshifts, but it seems that the problem is severely reduced. So the steering wheel settings that Red Bull told him to input earlier on seem to have helped to some degree, which is a massive relief for Max, of course. Because, of course, he wants to obviously hold on to the lead of this race and win it. But here comes Lance Stroll, overtaking Valtteri Bottas. Okay, so George Russell is now stuck in an Aston Martin sandwich. Oh dear. That might not go too well for him, but it may work out. Of course, in front of Fernando Alonso is still Lewis Hamilton, but he is beginning to close the gap to him. So that could be quite an interesting battle to watch, because, of course, Lewis Hamilton did have his first teammate in Formula One as Fernando Alonso. Fernando was his first teammate. And here we have an image of Lance Stroll's mother, Claire Ann, which is always nice to see. I've got to be honest, I've never seen her until this weekend, so she must be there to support her son, because obviously his team and his car is going phenomenally now, so must be some motherly support there, which is obviously great for him. Now, we have an image of, I think, Charles Leclerc. He went by very quickly, so I couldn't really see. Yep, it is Charles Leclerc. Being chased down by Sergio Perez once again, who is now on the fastest lap of the race again. That could be quite interesting. There's quite a gap between the two at the moment. We have a 3.5 second gap, so that will take quite a few laps to close up. Oh, we have a message from Lando Norris. Okay. It was just informing Lando Norris of Esteban Ocon's 5-second penalty. Lando Norris didn't respond, but it was probably like, okay, yep, sure, I'll get him. So it would look like Lando Norris is going to try and get in front of Esteban Ocon, which might not be too hard, because he's only 1.3 seconds behind him. Okay, right, what went wrong with Esteban Ocon? He overshot his grid slot slightly. Yep. Okay. Right, so we went too far over into the grid slot. That explains the 5-second time penalty. Right, that'll do it. So he just slightly overshot the grid slot, but that would have given him an advantage on the race start. Okay, and we now have Sergio Perez once again on the fastest lap of the race. Ooh, tiny lock up there from Charles Leclerc, but nothing too bad, it would seem. Just a little bit of smoke on, well, a little bit of tyre rubber coming off very quickly. And yeah, we are only on lap 22, as Crofty just said, so got a lot of race left to go yet. Yeah, quite a few laps left yet, so this race is nowhere near over now. Okay. Yep. Oh, okay. Carlos Sainz is about a second lap slower than Sergio Perez, so Carlos, if he wants to get back into the podium, is going to need to pick up the pace there a little bit. Fernando Alonso is still 3 seconds behind Hamilton, so it's going to take him a while to catch up to Lewis Hamilton as well. The Hasses are together down in 16th and 17th, which is going to be quite probably uneventful, potentially, unless something happens, which always does at Bahrain. Like, something could happen at any given moment that completely throws off the race. So, while this race does seem to be going a bit slowly at the moment, that could always change at a moment's notice. So, just be ready for some chaos to ensue, guys, because I know I sure as hell am. Once again, Sergio Perez on the fastest lap. My goodness. I'll admit, when Sergio Perez really gets into it, he can be an incredibly fast driver. So, I wouldn't rule out Sergio Perez for the race win. I wouldn't rule him out for that whatsoever. Of course, he does have quite the gap to Max Verstappen at the moment, with Charles Leclerc in between them. But Sergio Perez does seem to be closing up the gap slightly, with it only being a 1.9 second gap now. So, potentially in a couple of laps' time, Sergio could catch up to Charles Leclerc and overtake him, and then probably act as a rear gunner for Max, unless Max starts to lose pace and Sergio starts to catch up to him. Now, we have, I think this is Lewis Hamilton chasing down Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. That could be quite interesting. He does have quite the gap to Carlos Sainz with 4 seconds, but he might be able to make that up in the next few laps. We'll just have to wait and see. It depends how his pace is compared to the Ferrari. Oh my goodness, so sorry. That was actually Lando Norris versus Esteban Ocon. My mistake. I saw a bright neon helmet and I thought it was Lewis Hamilton. My bad. And that is actually Lando Norris overtaking Esteban Ocon. That was one hell of a boo-boo. Whoops. So that is Lando Norris up into 18th. But as I said, Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz, not too much going on that front at the moment, but potentially if Lewis Hamilton begins to close that gap, that particular battle could heat up a little bit. So that could be another one to watch out for. Okay. Lewis Hamilton, the reason he's so far behind Carlos Sainz at the moment is the fact that he is managing tyres a bit. Okay. Some information from Ferrari. Tyre degradation on the hard tyres seems to be lower than Ferrari expected, so it would seem that Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz might be safe on the hard tyres. And that is Sergio Perez again filling out the fastest lap on the softs. So, yeah, there's a lot of hard tyre runners on this track, but there's also a few soft tyre runners, and they seem to be doing quite well. So, I don't quite know how this race is going to go at the moment. It's quite up in the air. Like, both sets of drivers, the ones running the soft tyres and running the hard tyres, are doing quite well right now. So, and there's Sergio Perez with DRS on Charles Leclerc, which means he is within 1 second of the Ferrari, but can't quite get the move done into turn 1. But there is, of course, two more DRS zones on the track. And here comes another penalty for Esteban Ocon with a 10-second penalty for incorrectly serving his 5-second penalty. So there goes another 10 seconds for Esteban Ocon. Oh dear. Yeah, as Martin Brundle just said, if he doesn't serve that in the pits, it'll be added on to his ultimate race time. Although currently Esteban Ocon is in last, so at the moment it wouldn't change anything. But if Esteban Ocon does make up places, he's going to have to get 10 seconds ahead of who else behind him. Now, okay, so Aston Martin are happy with Fernando Alonso's tyre management at the moment. And they think he could, and I'm guessing that means that he might be able to go a while on this set of tyres. And they are hard, so they should be able to last for quite a while. Probably see him back in the pits towards the very end of the race. Okay, Sergio Perez is still on the back end of Charles Leclerc, so I am expecting an overtake attempt very soon. Well, here we are on the pit straight, so if he has an opportunity, the time is probably now to try it. Probably coming into turn 1. He has DRS again. Can he get the move? Oh, he's going to try it, and he has it. Oh, but Charles Leclerc's coming back. But nope, Sergio Perez, at least for now, makes the move stick. But of course, Charles Leclerc is still right up the back of Perez, and he did try to go for a dive bomb there, but it didn't quite work. So that might be Charles Leclerc stuck behind Sergio Perez for a little bit, but he is still right up his back end, so he may not be out of contention for second quite yet. So this battle is probably going to be monitored for a bit longer. So that's quite a shame for Ferrari, and one of the vice directors of Ferrari, Piero Ferrari, watching the race. Yeah, so bit of a shame for Charles Leclerc, but he may get Sergio Perez back soon in the next lap or two. He may stay in third, unsure. I am looking at their tyre ages. Charles Leclerc's hard tyres are 12 laps old, and Sergio Perez's softs are 10 laps old. Oh. Okay. Lewis is asking Mercedes if he needs to pick up the pace or stick with tyre management, and for now Mercedes have said stick with tyre management. So Lewis is going to be monitoring the tyres for a bit longer, so he's going to be, I don't want to say a little bit slower for a while, but he isn't going to be at top speed, which might make him vulnerable to Fernando Alonso, who is 1.6 seconds behind him. So in another half a sec, if he gets another half a second, Fernando Alonso will be in DRS range, which, by the way, is the little flap of the rear wing that opens when you're within a second of the driver in front of you. Oh, okay. Mercedes have changed their minds, and they've said to Lewis, okay, Lewis, you can now switch from tyre management and pick up the pace. So Lewis Hamilton is going to probably start to go a bit faster now, which will probably clear him a bit from Fernando Alonso and potentially help him catch up to Carlos Sainz. And that is Alex Albon and Yuki Tsunoda in the pits again, dropping them down quite a bit on the grid. But they're on their way out of the pits now. Nico Hülkenberg is also in the pits, so that is him dropping down a few places. Okay. So that's Lewis Hamilton firmly in fifth at the moment. He is pulling away from Fernando Alonso ever so slightly, but right now isn't at too much danger of being caught by him, and Carlos Sainz isn't in too much danger of being caught by Lewis Hamilton at the moment. Okay, and that means at the end of those pit stops, Hülkenberg is now down in last with Esteban Ocon in 18th, but if the race did end right now, Ocon would finish in last. And, oh my goodness, Ocon might be in trouble again, as he is now being investigated for speeding in the pit lane. Oh, dearie me. This is not a good race for Esteban Ocon at all. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. Could that be another penalty? Will they decide to leave it alone? Who knows? Okay, Sergio Perez, of course, is now in second again with the fastest lap, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. Okay, and here comes Nico Hulkenberg's... Ooh, nearly actually got hit by Esteban Ocon there. Oh, and speaking of Nico Hulkenberg, here he is in the pits having a front wing change, probably due to that incident with Esteban Ocon a few minutes ago. Yeah, that seems the most likely of reasons for that pit stop. And here comes Lando Norris in for a pit stop himself. Okay. Okay. And here comes another penalty for Esteban Ocon. And this time, it's another 5-second penalty. Oh my goodness. Not the best race for Esteban Ocon. Oh, and we have team radio from Max Verstappen. And he is reporting that his front left tyre is starting to wear away, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Bull of Max Verstappen does come in soon for another pit stop, and probably drops behind Sergio Perez, I would guess, because you need about 20 seconds gap in this pit lane to come back out where you started, roughly 20 seconds. And right now, Max Verstappen wouldn't have that, but if he needs to pit, he needs to pit. So we may see him come in the next couple of laps for that next pit stop. What he will change to in terms of tyres, I don't know. We are currently on lap 29, which means we have 18 laps of the race left to go, which is semi-safe territory. Oh no, sorry. I meant 27 laps to go, not 17. Which is barely safe territory to do softs for the rest of the race. Like, if he pitted for softs now, he would need to come in again towards the end of the race, unless he did some major tyre management in the last few laps. So Max's strategy is a little bit up in the air right now, if he needs to pit imminently. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Okay. And that is the fastest lap for Nico Hulkenberg with a 1:36.9, which is really good in race pace. Like, that's a really good lap, to be fair. Okay. And here comes a bit of a scrap between it's Esteban Ocon and Nick de Vries. So that could be quite an interesting one to monitor, potentially. Here we have Franz Tost, the team principal of AlphaTauri, looking admittedly quite nervous. And here comes Valtteri Bottas in for a pit stop from 9th. And his pit stop was are they going to show time? For some reason, they don't always do so. A 3.2 second stop. So, for Valtteri Bottas, that's a really good stop. Like, that is an incredible one for him. And there's Kevin Magnussen into the pits again. Okay, I'm just seeing all the pit stops. Most of the grid are on 1 and 2 stops, but Lando Norris is now on is now on his 3rd stop, which is quite unfortunate for him, but I think it was damage. Oh, and Lando Norris is on medium tyres. Now, that wasn't included in the strategies at the start at all, so that's going to be quite interesting to see how Lando does on the medium tyres. And here we have the second pit window of the race, which is lap 31 to 42. So that's from any lap from now until lap 42, because it is lap 31 as we speak. And here comes a Mercedes. And by the looks of it, it's Sir Lewis Hamilton, yep, for his third stop of the race. Okay, Lewis was a bit worried that they were pulling him in a bit early, but then they informed him that it was Fernando Alonso behind him. And here comes Lance Stroll in for his pit stop. Fernando Alonso is now ahead of Lewis Hamilton, along with his teammate. And now, both Mercedes are now in an Aston Martin sandwich. Unless Stroll comes out. Nope. Okay, so it's now... Right, to give the order at the minute, it's Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. Oh, that's about to change. I'll start again in a moment, because Carlos Sainz is about to pit. And Logan Sargent is already in, so... Here comes the seemingly final pit stops of the race for most drivers, if not the second. Because as I mentioned, the prime strategies are 3 stops, whether it's soft, soft, or soft, hard. So I think most drivers are probably now on their final pit stop of the race, which means that once this round of pit stops finishes, I'll be able to give you the full current rundown of the grid unless it suddenly changes. Yep, and here comes Carlos Sainz flying into the pits. Of course, he will have to slow down. And here comes George Russell in for another pit stop. So Mercedes haven't quite double stacked. They have put both drivers pretty close together in terms of their pit stops. Okay, and that's quite a good... Whoa, that's an amazing stop for Carlos Sainz with 2.3 seconds. And here comes George Russell for his. And that's 2.5 for George Russell. Those are pretty good pit stops. That's kind of getting back towards the fastest pit stops of last season. In fact, the fastest one of last season overall was Lando Norris with a 1.9 second. And oh, that's a very close pit stop for George Russell, just getting out in front of Lance Stroll. But Stroll is right up his back end, and is about to try an overtake attempt, and gets the job done. So that is Lance Stroll up into 7th, and George Russell down into 8th. Wow, that was amazing, I can't lie. That was really fun. Right, it seems that most of the pit stops have stopped now, so I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of the grid. Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, George Russell, and they've gone to a replay. I will get this rundown done eventually, I promise. Or I might just do it at the end of the race, because it might change between now and then anyway. That was a blistering overtake from Lance Stroll, I can't lie. That was mega. Okay, now I can actually carry on because nothing's changed. George Russell in 8th, Zhou Guanyu in 9th, 10th Valtteri Bottas, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda, Logan Sargent, Nick De Vries, Kevin Magnussen, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg, and Lando Norris. Of course, Oscar Piastri is out. And the fastest lap of the race now is going to go to Lance Stroll. Wow! With a 1:36.5. That is an incredibly quick lap in a race. My goodness. Oh, and there's Zhou Guanyu coming into the pits. And I don't know where he's going to come out, but at the moment he's behind Yuki Tsunoda in 14th now, sorry. Okay. And Esteban Ocon is now going to come into the pits again to serve both of his time penalties, which will add up to an ultimate total of 15 seconds. And here comes Ferrari for another pit stop for Charles Leclerc pitting out of 3rd, which will once again put Fernando Alonso into a podium position, which is still feeling kind of like a fever dream to say. And yep, out comes Charles Leclerc, Oh, yep, and there goes Fernando Alonso into the top three, just behind Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen. And at the moment, the top three are the only drivers left on one stop. They've only completed one stop of the race so far, so they've still got at least another stop to go. In fact, the only two drivers that are on three stops now, are Lando Norris and Esteban Ocon in the last two places. And here comes George Russell back on Lance Stroll. He might try to get him this lap because he is quite close to Stroll. So this one's going to be one to watch out for once again, I think. Okay, George Russell is hanging back ever so slightly, but I think once George Russell gets into DRS range, he is probably going to try and make a move there. So, oh, and here comes Sergio Perez for his second stop of the race. So this will put Fernando Alonso into P2. Wow! Are we sure we haven't gone back to like 2013 rather than 2023? Because I've not seen this Fernando. I've not seen Fernando this high up on the grid for a very long time. This is amazing. Like, wow, Fernando Alonso is well and truly back. But here he comes into the pits as well, which will probably put him back behind Charles Leclerc, I'm guessing. Potentially Carlos Sainz as well. Yep, there he goes behind Charles Leclerc. But will that put him behind Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari? Or will he come out ahead? Nope. He will be coming out behind Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. Oh, wow, okay. That's quite interesting. So now the Aston Martins are in a Mercedes sandwich, unlike earlier, where the situation was flipped. Oh, and here's Sergio Perez's pit stop. On a replay, I wonder why we're seeing this. Oh, okay, so there was a problem with the front jack. Oh dear. Not quite what Red Bull would have been hoping for there. Okay, not quite what Red Bull were hoping for then, I imagine. Max Verstappen, now has a 30-second lead over Sergio Perez. 38 seconds, guys. 38. That is double the lead that Théo Pourchaire had in the F2 race earlier on. Wow! That is, I think that's better than any lead he had last year, so this Red Bull RB19 is going to be a beast. It's going to be an absolute monster of a car. And wow, that is immense. I can't lie. Oof. But like Martin Brundle's just mentioned, this Mercedes versus Aston Martin battle could be quite interesting throughout the season. Because, of course, Aston Martin are a Mercedes-powered car. But right now, they're outperforming their engine suppliers, which is quite interesting. That doesn't happen incredibly often. But it would seem that right now, it is. In fact, the only other time I can really think of that happening is McLaren when they were outdoing Mercedes when they returned to the sport in the early 2010s. And here comes Max Verstappen in for his pit stop, which, well, he may actually remain in first, considering his absolutely gargantuan gap to Sergio Perez in second. In fact, I think he is going to remain in first, which is just frankly unreal. That is a 2.3 for Red Bull, so Red Bull are definitely getting back into the swing of pit stops. And, okay, that's Lando Norris. He is not being overtaken by Sergio Perez. He was just, he's probably actually about to lap Lando Norris, I would guess. Okay, yep, that is Max Verstappen still firmly in first, but his gap to Perez has now been cut down to only 12 seconds, so not that big of a gap, really. Well, not by Max Verstappen's standards. And that is the fastest lap for Fernando Alonso, and he is right up the back end of Lewis Hamilton. So, Lewis Hamilton's going to have to do some defending now to fend off Fernando Alonso. Although it may not be enough, because here comes Fernando Alonso, and he overtakes Lewis Hamilton, but Lewis Hamilton gets the switchback and gets back into fifth. Oh my god! Wow! That was like 2007 when they were teammates all over again. Whoa! I can't lie. That was fun. Wow, that was amazing. Because these two are now the oldest drivers on the grid. Granted, with a 3-year gap between them in terms of age, but they are the oldest drivers on the grid. And I think Fernando Alonso is going to try again in a moment to get Lewis Hamilton back. Whoa! This could be quite a fight here, guys. Like, this is going to be quite an interesting one. I cannot lie. Oof. Okay. He's hanging back for now, but I think once Fernando gets DRS, Lewis Hamilton's going to have to do some defending again, because, wow, that was an amazing switchback from Lewis there. Fernando did an amazing job as well, but Lewis, whoa. But, yep, I think Fernando has DRS once again, yep. And he's yep, here he comes for another, gonna have a little look. Doesn't decide to go for it this time. But, of course, he has two more DRS zones before the end of the lap, as I said. So he hasn't run out of chances to get Lewis. But he's just biding his time. And, okay. Had another little look there. Once again, didn't decide to go for it. But I think Fernando Alonso is going to try it again in the next few seconds, because he is right at the back end of Lewis Hamilton. Okay, had another little look, didn't decide to go for it. But here he comes again. Fernando is up the side of Lewis Hamilton. Can't quite get it done, but here he comes again. And there it is. Fernando has overtaken Lewis Hamilton. Is Lewis going to try and come back again? We'll have to wait and see. But he is right behind Fernando Alonso, so this could be going on for quite a while here, guys, because, as I mentioned earlier, Lewis and Fernando have quite a history. Hell, Fernando was Lewis's first teammate in Formula 1 back in 2007, when he was reigning world champion, and that is Fernando over the radio, very happy about overtaking his old teammate, Lewis Hamilton. God, that battle between those two was absolutely immense. I've never seen anything like it, especially between these two. Like, of course, they were quite back and forth back in 2007 and many years ago, but in this modern era, in the last few years, these two haven't really seen much of each other at all. But this was just phenomenal to see. Oh, yep, and that was very clean overtake from Fernando into turn 10. Now, is Lewis Hamilton gonna try and come back at him to retake P5? And it would seem that Lewis is planning to do so. So, yeah, this back and forth may go on for a little while longer yet. I believe they're just coming to the main straight, and oh no, this is turn 10 again. Okay, Lewis hasn't decided to take the switch back here where Fernando took him. But give them a moment, they'll be back at the main straight, and this could be where Lewis gets Fernando back again. But also, Carlos Sainz is now, pardon me, just under 3 seconds from Fernando Alonso. So it's very possible that Fernando Alonso could also get Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, which would be immense. Like, wow. One hell of a day at the office for Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin. Wow. Okay, Lewis Hamilton has his DRS open. Is he going to try and get Fernando Alonso into turn one? He's going to have a look, but doesn't quite decide to go for it. Okay, so this little scrap between old teammates could be going on for quite a few laps now. Potentially even towards the end of the race if they can't quite get this sorted between them. If one doesn't get far enough ahead of the other, this could go on for potentially the remaining 17 laps, which I'm not going to complain about because, yeah. Oh, Esteban Ocon over the radio. Okay. He's not happy with all the time penalties leveled against him. I can't blame him, but I can see what's happened. And that was a massive lockup from Lando Norris coming into turn 10. Did manage to save it, but barely. So that was very lucky for Lando Norris there. Now, this battle between Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, I don't... Oh! And that is Charles Leclerc slowing to a stop. Oh, goodness. And that is the end of Charles Leclerc's Bahrain Grand Prix. Oh, God. Sector 3, yellow flag. Oh, no. Disaster for the Scuderia. Ah! And that was the car that they changed the battery on earlier. Oh, no. So that is Charles Leclerc firmly out of this race. Oh, dear. Okay, Carlos Sainz is going to need to keep an eye on his Ferrari now, just in case. Oh, absolute disaster for championship runner-up from last year, Charles Leclerc. Let's see what happened. Okay, he's in 6th gear, things are going okay. And then, yeah, the engine just completely cut out on him. Oh, absolute disaster for Ferrari on the first race of the season. Yep, and Martin Brundle has said it's an electrical issue. I have to agree because there is no smoke, as he said. So, yep. And that is Charles Leclerc out of the Bahrain Grand Prix after running a fairly respectable race up till now. And Piero Ferrari is not looking best pleased, quite understandably. Oh, man. And that is, of course, a virtual safety car. Quite surprised it wasn't a physical safety car, but thankfully Charles was able to stop the car right by an exit road, so they were just able to wheel the car off the track. And here comes a Red Bull for a pit stop, it seems. I don't quite know who. Oh, okay. Maybe it was a false alarm there. Okay, and that is the virtual safety car ending. Oh man, that is an absolute disaster for Charles Leclerc. Not a good start to his championship. And that is the virtual safety car over. So that means they can go back to racing just as they were before. So from this race, we have lost one Ferrari in Charles Leclerc and one McLaren in Oscar Piastri. Well, I wasn't quite expecting that. The Ferrari up to now was running really damn well. But that does also mean that Carlos Sainz has to fly the flag for Ferrari for the rest of the race, while fending off Fernando Alonso, only 2.3 seconds behind him. So, Carlos Sainz may have some trouble yet, but we'll have to wait and see. Oh, this race just got interesting, guys, I can't lie, because there's only one place now between Fernando Alonso and a podium. Whoa. And that is Fernando Alonso on the fastest lap of the race so far. And Charles Leclerc is getting on a moped, definitely to head back to the Ferrari pits, which I can't imagine is a journey that he would want to make. Okay, and here are the two AlphaTauris having a bit of a battle. One's trying to overtake the other. I can't quite see who's who. Pardon me. Okay, so that is Yuki Tsunoda overtaking Nick de Vries. Although, saying that, Zhou Guanyu's getting in the mix, so Nick de Vries might be in a bit of danger again from Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo. Oh dear. Oh, well, that was quite an interesting, surprising incident from Charles Leclerc. Okay. And Esteban Ocon is again in the pits. I'm not sure why this time. I think he served all of his penalties in the last stop. I'm not sure. Okay. Oh, it's Pierre. Okay, Pierre Gasly. We're seeing something from him here. I'm not quite sure what yet, unless it's an overtake. Ah, okay. It's an overtake on Alex Albon in the Williams. Well done, Pierre. That was actually quite a clean overtake, I can't lie. And that is Esteban Ocon also retiring from the race. Oh, that is quite a surprise. I really wasn't expecting that one. Oh, wow, okay. And quite ironically, his teammate, Pierre Gasly, has just pulled the fastest lap of the race with a 1:35.068. So almost 1:35 flat. Okay. And Fernando Alonso is now less than a second behind Carlos Sainz, which means that in the next DRS zone, he will have DRS on Carlos Sainz and potentially overtake him, if not get very close to doing so. So this race is by no means over yet, and frankly is just hotting up by quite a bit. Wow, that was... whew, what a race this has been. I can't lie. I've really enjoyed this one. It's been really good. I am honestly in shock as to how good this race has been. Yep, Carlos Sainz is still even more under threat from Fernando Alonso, as Fernando is now 0.7 seconds behind Carlos. So it is possible that Fernando Alonso may end up back in the podium positions again in the next lap or two. Will he keep it? Wait and see. I don't know what happened to Esteban Ocon, though. I'm guessing an engine failure of some description. I didn't quite catch what had happened to him. Okay, that's still the fastest lap for Pierre Gasly. Logan Sargent has just overtaken Nick de Vries, which puts him into 13th. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Carlos has had a radio from Ferrari saying, try to defend your position from Alonso, but Carlos has said, if I try to push too hard, I might not make it to the end, which is quite an alarming statement to make, really. So, yeah, it's possible Fernando Alonso could end up on the podium here. So, once again, Fernando Alonso in the thick of the action. Oh, and here comes Fernando Alonso. Oh, wow. Okay. I wasn't able to say here comes Sebastian Vettel, but that'll do. Yeah. Fernando Alonso hasn't quite decided to take the move on him yet, but I think it's coming now. Yep. Okay. No. He's just having another quick look. Oh, and that's contact between Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz. Oh, God, that was quite a surprise. I don't think there's any damage on Fernando Alonso's car, or Carlos Sainz's for that matter. But here comes Fernando Alonso again. Nope. Okay. And there's a lockup from Carlos Sainz, but that doesn't seem to have affected it. But I think Fernando Alonso is going to get him in the next few moments. Oh my God. And Fernando Alonso is up into third by overtaking his fellow countryman Carlos Sainz. Wow. That is insanity. And with only 11 laps to go, that could potentially be locked in. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that was a bit of an insane overtake from Fernando Alonso. Quite long and drawn out, but I'm not too surprised that it did happen in the end. Wow, that was great. I'm sorry, but the Fernando Alonso battles in this race have just been absolutely brilliant. I've enjoyed all of them so far. Like, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay. Now we're off the Fernando Alonso hype train, for now. Let's see how the rest of the grid's getting on. Okay, Max Verstappen is maintaining his 10-second lead, which is obviously brilliant for Red Bull, as it seems to be a Red Bull 1-2 for the moment, unless Fernando Alonso does an absolute mad one again and overtakes Perez. But ooh, that was quite some contact there from Fernando Alonso on Carlos Sainz. Again, I don't think there was any damage. That's probably going to get chalked up to a racing incident, I would guess. Maybe a penalty, I don't know currently. We'll have to wait and see to see if the FIA even investigates it, because they have to decide to do that first before they even think about making a penalty decision. Now, okay, that is nuts. Okay, we have roughly half the grid on hards and roughly half the grid on soft tyres now, so have to see how this goes. Most of the top 10 are on hards. Okay. Okay, we're just seeing Lewis Hamilton's progress in this race. He's gone up 2 places, from 7th to 5th. Oh, and here he comes on Carlos Sainz. Okay, so Carlos Sainz could be dropped down to 5th in the next few moments. Oh, this is not the best of races for Ferrari. Oh dear. Ferrari have not had a good day in the office. They're definitely going to be having some conversations after this race in preparations for the next race. But yeah, this has been an incredible race so far, I cannot lie. Bahrain is always a fun one, but I've never seen one this intense. Like, I've never seen one this action-packed. Of course, last year's was pretty insane with the 3 Red Bull engine failures, but this is nuts because all of this stuff that's been happening has come out of nowhere. Like, we had Oscar Piastri just disappear, and then Charles Leclerc dropped, his engine died, and then Esteban Ocon, I still don't know what happened to him. And here's the replay of what happened between Carlos Sainz and Alonso with, I'm going to assume this is where the damage happened. Oh, okay. Oh no, this seems to be the actual overtake itself. Yep, here it comes. Yeah, that was a clean overtake from Fernando. Wow. His team radio there was, yes, bye-bye. Okay, so Fernando is very much back. Yeah, this is the Fernando we knew and loved as kids. And one of the Aston Martin mechanics is actually shaking. He's so happy. Wow. That is mad. We're just seeing a view of the points at the moment. So Albon would get 1 right now. Pierre Gasly would get 3. Bottas on 4. George Russell on 6. Lance Stroll on 8. Hamilton 10. Sainz 12. Fernando Alonso 15. Sergio Perez 18. And Max Verstappen 25 points. If the race finished right now. That is what those drivers would get in terms of points. But of course, we still got a few laps to go. Oh, and Carlos is complaining about bouncing. We know that's been a problem in the past, so Ferrari are definitely going to want to check that and see if they can do anything about it. And now we're into the final 8 laps of the race. No, sorry, 9 laps of the race, because, of course, lap 57 counts as the last lap. So we're into the final few laps of the race now. Things will probably start to calm down a little bit or go completely off the rails Like, that's how things generally go in Bahrain. They either calm right down in the final few laps, or all hell breaks loose. And it's usually pretty hard to tell which way that's going to go. And I believe that's Lando Norris coming into the pits as well. Probably for his final stop of the race. Hopefully his final stop of the race, because, you know, I think he's on his 4th or 5th now, and there's not many laps left. So hopefully this is Lando Norris's final stop of the race. Okay. Yeah, Ten Kravitz has just said, at this rate, McLaren's going to run out of tyres, and frankly, yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay, and there's Lando Norris out of the pits again, so he is not retired from this race. Thank goodness. I thought he had earlier on, I can't lie, because of his troubles, but then no, he came back out and was absolutely fine. Wow. This race has been really thrilling, I can't lie. I have loved this race so far. I really hope that the rest of the season's this good, because, whew, damn. Okay. Lewis Hamilton is still behind Carlos Sainz, but it does seem that might be about to change, potentially. Okay. Right. We have an... Okay, so it's a 0.9 okay, it's a 1 second gap now between the two of them. Oh, 0.9 seconds. Okay, so it's a bit of a close call whether Lewis Hamilton will be able to make the move now. And we're now on to lap 50. So we're in the final 7 or 8 laps of the race. Oh, Alonso, team radio. Okay. Okay, he's just vocalizing what he needs to do in this race, which for some drivers that does probably help. Like, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. Okay. Oh, and that is a black and white flag for Nico Hulkenberg for track limit violations. And the next level up from that is a 5-second time penalty. Another one in this race. Yikes. Yep. I believe it's 3 track limits violations, and then it's the black and white flag, then the penalty. And there's another shot of Mick Schumacher there in the Mercedes garage. Okay, and here comes Lewis Hamilton again to close the gap up to Carlos Sainz, it seems. Not trying for the overtake this time, but closing up the gap so he can do it at some point. So Lewis Hamilton might overtake Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari very soon. Maybe in the next couple of laps, maybe just before the end of the race. We are going to have to wait and see on that one. But whatever happens with that happens. It would seem that Fernando Alonso is now firmly in 3rd, unless something happens to him. Please God, no. But we don't want any other drivers going out of this race. We've already lost 3 as it is. So rather unfortunate incidents with engine failures across the board on that one. That's really strange how 3 separate engine suppliers have lost an engine, because Alpine's obviously powered by Renault, Ferrari, well, powered by Ferrari, and McLaren powered by Mercedes. And here's the first shot of Max Verstappen we've seen in quite a while, because of course he is very, very comfortably in the lead. The only thing that would stop him now probably is something akin to the other 3, but hopefully for him, nothing happens and he is able to win the race. But in the world of Formula 1, nothing's guaranteed, so just have to wait and see, I suppose. And speaking of Max Verstappen, there he is, lapping, seemingly Zhou Guan Yu. Whoa! He is making his way through the grid in terms of lapping them. Yikes. Okay. Okay. There's a bit of a ding-dong battle going on between George Russell and Lance Stroll. Ultimately, nothing has changed, but George Russell did have Lance Stroll overtaken for a second, but Stroll did very quickly get him back. Now, we do have a bit of a battle going on as well here between Kevin Magnussen and Nick De Vries. this could be one to monitor for a couple of minutes while they get this sorted out. Oh, we have a replay of Lance Stroll. I don't quite know what for. Oh, this may be the overtake from George Russell and then the immediate switch back. Oh, he ran wide. Okay, so he ran wide coming out of turn 10, which is, from my experience on F1 22, quite easy to do. I hate turn 9 and turn 10 on that game. It's a nightmare. Anyway. Yeah, it's just been said that this is going to be a very good start for James Vowles, a new Williams team principal, only the third in the team's history. It's been Sir Frank Williams, may he rest in peace, Jost Capito, and now James Vowles. That is an amazing number of team principals for such a long history team. Love that message from Fernando Alonso. This is a lovely car to drive. Glad you like it, Fernando. Wow, love that. Yeah, I'll admit Fernando Alonso has a bit of a reputation for picking the wrong team at the wrong time when making team switches, but it seems that this time, with Aston Martin, he has absolutely got it right. And wow. Like, that is... I just love that message from Fernando. You know, just casually say, oh, this is a great car. I absolutely love it, guys. Good job. Bet the Aston Martin engineers are blushing a bit there. Oh, and this could be podium 99 for Fernando Alonso if he manages to keep third place today, because he is currently on 98. Wow, that is one hell of a record. Like, could you imagine if he gets 100 in the next couple of weeks? That would be nuts. So this could be his 99th podium. I believe the last one was only during his Alpine career in either, I think it was 2021, or yeah, it was 2021. I don't remember when it was, but I know he was on the podium. Yes, it was the penultimate race of 2021 in Saudi Arabia. That was it. Haha, memory does work. Anyway, we have Yuki Tsunoda chasing down Alex Albon for 10th place, aka the final points paying position. So if Yuki Tsunoda gets this, he'll be in the points, and Alex Albon will be out of the points. So Yuki Tsunoda really, really wants that place, and Alex Albon really, really wants to keep that place. So this one's going to be quite an interesting battle. I will admit the battles for 10th are always good ones to watch because it's the difference between 1 point and no points. So it's going to be a good one to watch here for a minute or two, unless something crazy happens up the front of the grid. Oh, we have race control incident involving Nico Hülkenberg from multiple incidents. I can't remember what it was specifically. Oh yeah, multiple track limit violations. Okay, so that could be... so he's under investigation for his track limits violations. That might end up in a penalty in the closing laps of the race, as we're on lap 54 now, 57. So there isn't much of this race left to go. Only a few laps. I think I'm going to finish this stream after the podium has finished. So I'm going to do a bit of a post-race talk. Oh, and we have a penalty for Nico Hülkenberg coming in. And it is a 5-second time penalty. So he either needs to serve that in a pit stop, or it'll be added onto the end of his onto the end of the race, which will probably drop him down into last place behind Lando Norris. Unless he is able to build up a gap to Lando bigger than 5 seconds. Have to wait and see on that front, unless he plays it safe and goes in for the pit stop. Okay, right now he'd have to pull out 2.5 seconds to stay in front of Lando Norris. So I'm guessing Nico is probably going to say, to hell with it, and go into the pits. Okay. And here we have, once again, Max Verstappen, probably on course for his 36th race win, because now he is on 35, but by the looks of it, this will be his 36th, and frankly, it's been an amazing one for him. Oh, another, okay, another radio from Alonso asking about Stroll, to see if he's going to catch Lewis Hamilton, but the answer is probably no, as he is 4 seconds behind Lewis, with only 3 laps to go, so it's unlikely that Lance Stroll will get to Lewis Hamilton, so it's looking as if it's going to be a 3-6 finish for Aston Martin, which, I've got to say, for them is a damn good day at the office. Oh my god. Like, I'm genuinely in shock here, guys. I can't quite believe what I'm seeing. Aston Martin firmly in the top 10. One of them on course for a podium. Wow. And we have now just seen the checkered flag waver, who is a MotoGP winner. So that's going to be fun to see him wave the checkered flag at the end of the race in 2 laps' time. Yep, we're on lap 56. So at the end of this lap, it'll be the final lap of the race. Okay, and here's Max Verstappen again. Oh, and there is the Alpine of Pierre Gasly trundling along the track in 9th place. So Alpine will at least get some points on the board today, thanks to Pierre Gasly. I'm sure Piastri, Leclerc, and Ocon's engines will be ripped apart at the end of this race to see what went wrong with each of them, and if they can fix them, or see what they can modify in the new engines that they'll have to take, obviously, to avoid that happening again. Because each team is only allowed 3 engines per season, and if they go over that, then they start to get grid penalties. So they are going to have to monitor that quite heavily, as this is only round 1, and we have 22 more to go. And here comes Max Verstappen, probably on his way to the final lap of the race, yep. And he is about to start that, so Max Verstappen just has to keep the car on the road now. All he's got to do is keep the car on the road for the next 15 corners to win the race. And there's Adrian Newey and Christian Horner, the Red Bull chief designer and team principal, respectively. I'm not quite sure of Adrian Newey's actual title, but he is the man who designs the cars. So it looks as if it's going to be a Verstappen, Perez, and Alonso podium. Wow. That is quite the podium lineup, I cannot lie. And if that is the sort of trend we can expect through the season, this is going to be a phenomenal one, guys. I cannot wait for the rest of it. Wow. Okay. And I'm guessing this is Max Verstappen coming towards the end of his final lap of the race. And it looks as if he's about to lap the Williams of Logan Sargent, potentially. Logan Sargent, oh no, here he comes. So there he is to overtake Logan Sargent in the Williams. And here he comes for the win of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Any moment now. Wow. This has been an insane race, guys. And Max Verstappen comes home to win the Bahrain Grand Prix, round 1 of 2023. And any moment now should be Sergio Perez right behind him in 2nd place, along with Fernando Alonso in 3rd. Yep, here comes Sergio Perez for 2nd, so that is a Red Bull 1-2. And any moment now, we should see that lean, green, speedy machine, the Aston Martin, coming home in P3. Wow! That... And that's Fernando Alonso in P3. In an Aston Martin. A very, very good day for the Milton Keynes team of Red Bull and the Silverstone-based team of Aston Martin. Wow! That is genuinely one of the best races I've ever seen. And, of course, driver of the day, by the fan vote, has gone to Fernando Alonso with a staggering 53% of the votes going to him. Whew! Oh. A very positive radio message here from Max Verstappen. I really want to hear Fernando Alonso's. He's probably going to be going nuts. Yeah. That was amazing. Wow. And yeah, that is a lot of fireworks going off at the track. Holy hell. But yeah, I'm going to cover the podium, guys, and then I'm going to shoot off of this stream ready for the Astoundcast in just over an hour's time on stereo. Not on here. That may change one day, but we'll see. But yeah, wow, that was amazing. Fernando looks... Oh. Fernando is incredibly happy. Wow, that was great. Big congrats to Red Bull. Big congrats to Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin. Fastest lap of the race went to Zhou Guan Yu. So big congrats to Alfa Romeo as well. Hamilton radio coming in. And that is P5 for Lewis Hamilton. So brilliant result for him in the Mercedes. Wow, yeah. And here comes Max Verstappen to take the winner's spot in the paddock. Well, in the pit lane. Oh, up he drives. Oh, that's a very... Oh, that was very close. He nearly fell off the ramp. Ugh. Wow. What a race. I can't believe I've just seen that. Like, the Red Bull 1-2, I'm not too surprised about. But Fernando Alonso in P3 is just... It's stuff you love to see. I've got to be honest. That was just a picture-perfect ending to this race for the 41-year-old Fernando Alonso, who started in F1 21 years ago. No, 22 years ago, I think, this weekend, in Melbourne in 2001. Yeah, he's been in F1 longer than I've been alive. And he is on the podium. Wow! So, I think this could be quite an interesting championship battle already. Red Bull, of course, have quite a pace advantage over Aston Martin right now, but I have no doubt that in the next few races, Aston will bring some upgrades to the car, which will probably bring them ever so slightly closer to the Red Bulls. Okay, and there's Fernando, incredibly happy, running towards his team at Aston Martin. Wow. Honestly, guys, I am in shock after that. Wow. Fernando Alonso in third place for the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2023. Wow. Big congrats to him. Honestly, that was a phenomenal result. And there's Fernando going to congratulate Verstappen on his race win. So this is Fernando Alonso's 99th podium in Formula 1. Whoa. This could be, honestly, this could be an incredible season if things carry on the way they are going right now. I'm in shock, guys. That was brilliant. Wow. And here comes the podium. Well, they'll be heading into the cool-down room for a minute or two first, and then it'll be the podium. And that is round one of the 2023 season over and done with. Next up is, I think it's Qatar next. In I think 2 weeks' time. I don't think there's a race next weekend. I'll keep you guys updated on that one, but I think it's Qatar in 2 weeks' time. Or is it Saudi Arabia? I don't remember, but got another race in the Middle East before we head off to, I think, Australia. So, yeah, it's going to be a very all-over-the-place season in terms of the races. Oh, wow. But if that race is anything to go by, this season is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And the post-race interviews are being conducted by Nico Rosberg, 2016 F1 champion for Mercedes. Yeah. And he's just talking to Fernando now, saying how amazing that was. And there's Lance Stroll. I was hoping to see that. But, wow. Yeah, to be fair, Lance Stroll's had a comeback as well. 12 days since surgery, and he's back in an F1 car in 6th place. Whoa! That is honestly immense. So, big congrats to Red Bull, as I said. Big congrats to Aston Martin. Commiserations to Ferrari, McLaren, and Alpine for their engine failures with their drivers. Well done to Mercedes as well with their honestly really brilliant results. And of course, big congrats to all the other teams as well, because everyone today did a stellar job. Yeah, okay, so it is going to be Saudi Arabia next rather than Qatar. So, my mistake. Qatar's further along in the season. But, wow. Okay, Sergio Perez is up next on the interviews. Yeah, Nico says it right on the head. Dream start for Red Bull with a 1-2. Wow. Red Bull have really done well with this year's car. It seems even better than the RB18 of last year. Wow. That was just absolutely immense. Really happy for everyone who managed to finish. Gutted for the drivers who didn't finish. Hopefully, Jeddah will go better for them. But yeah, this season, just from this race alone, is going to be good. I can feel it in the back of my neck. I can feel this season is going to be a thriller from start to finish. I don't think we're going to have a single boring race this season. We're going to have to wait and see. But this season, just from this first race, could be one of the best ones we've ever had. Even potentially rivaling 2021. Yeah, and we know that season was absolutely bonkers. Yeah, Nico just really hitting the nail on the head. This is probably the best start Red Bull could have hoped for. And saying that, same goes for Aston Martin. Podium in the first race. I don't think team principal Mike Crack will be complaining about that at all. But yeah, and as Max Verstappen's just said, this is actually his first ever win at the Bahrain Grand Prix, so big congrats to him on that. God, that... I'm going to be getting over that race for quite a while, guys. That was just absolutely phenomenal, really. Well, all I can say now is roll on Jeddah in, I think, 2 weeks' time. That's going to be great. I really hope Jeddah is as good as this race has been, because, my God, that was generally one of the best races I've ever seen in my history of watching F1. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And now we're getting ready for the podium ceremony, I'm assuming. Oh, the drivers are in the cool-down room. Well, the top 3 drivers are. and then in a few minutes we'll have the podium, and then I will sign off on this stream, ready for the Astoundcast in just over an hour now. So please join me on stereo at 6 p.m. UK time for that second stream of the day, in which I'll be talking to Roxanne and Rodney from the after credit scene about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I saw last weekend, which I really did like. So yeah, please stick around for that stream, and then that'll be it for this week. And that'll be next video tomorrow. Well, obviously that'll be the Astoundcast re-uploaded onto YouTube, and then it'll be the Bad Batch predictions on Tuesday. But yeah, I am just really in shock of that race. Over that race, I couldn't have really predicted how that race had gone. That was frankly insane. That was amazing. Very glad to see Fernando Alonso back on the podium. Like, I've got to be honest, he does suit the podium positions. I have always rated Fernando very highly as a driver, of course. He has had some troubles with picking the right teams at the right time, but as I said earlier, it does seem that he has done it this time. So, big congrats to Fernando, big congrats to Aston Martin, big congrats to Red Bull too, and all the other teams that did a stellar job today. Good job to Carlos Sainz as well for holding off as well as he did on his own by the end of the race. Remember, for the last 10 or so laps, he was the only Ferrari left on the track. So, yeah, big congrats to everyone, really. Everyone had a brilliant race. And here comes the podium. So this is this 99th podium, which frankly is just insane. I'm very, very happy for him. And here comes Sergio Perez in P2. Oh, wow. And in a moment will come the race winner of the day, Max Verstappen. Here he comes in P1. Once again, Max Verstappen for the first ever time at this race, which is just brilliant for him. Oh, wow. That was great. That was genuinely a really good race. And here comes the Dutch and Swiss national anthems. Of course, the Dutch anthem is Max's and Swiss is Red Bull's, because they play the national anthem of the driver who won and the constructor of the driver who won. So, for example, when Lewis Hamilton was winning, it would have been God Save the King, and the German national anthem, as Mercedes is German, and of course Lewis Hamilton is English. Wow. I'm going to need so much time to cool off after this race, guys. That was brilliant. Wow. Okay. This championship has just got off to a very interesting start. I don't know how it's going to go from here on out, but my God, I really hope it's as entertaining as this race has been. Because this was, frankly, a perfect start to the season. On 99%. For 99% of the teams, this was a perfect start, really. It was brilliant. So, I think it's now 2 weeks until Jeddah, which of course will be round 2 of the season. How that race is going to go, I don't know, because it is quite a different track to Bahrain. It's a lot twistier, not as many straights. So, and it is of course a street circuit, which does always make things a little bit more interesting, as the track is obviously quite a bit narrower than a normal racetrack. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one next time out at Jeddah. I'm curious. And here comes the bit everyone wants to see, the champagne, even though it isn't really champagne in Bahrain, but, well, no, it's the trophies first. But, oh, It is going to take me a while to get over this race, guys. I will say that. Like, wow. Yep, that is a very, very happy Max Verstappen receiving his winner's trophy. And here comes Mohammed Ben Sulayem with a medal as well. Oh, so they have started to do that. Okay. I had a feeling they might be doing that at some point, but I wasn't expecting it now. So they've now got trophies and medals. Okay. If that's for P1 only, I don't know. And here is the Constructors' Trophy for Red Bull. Not sure who's lifting that. Okay. Here comes the second place trophy. Yeah. Now, here comes the third place trophy for Fernando Alonso. So it looks as if it's only the winner who gets a medal at the end. And that is a very happy Martin Whitmarsh, who, of course, used to work for McLaren while Fernando Alonso was there, but is now with Aston Martin. And all three drivers are immensely happy. And I can't blame any of them. And now I think Rosewater's being sprayed. And I think this is where I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Thank you all for joining me on this incredibly long stream. I really can't wait to do this again in Jeddah. If you've liked this, please subscribe to the channel. And once you've done that, please head into my description, at which point you're going to see my link tree, which will contain all my social medias, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Stereo, TikTok. And if you go below that, you're going to see Roxanne's YouTube and her website. And that's going to do it for this stream. So I'll see you all later with this week's Astoundcast. Bye, everyone.